that once he becomes king, across the board, he's going to strip everyone that's not a working member of the royal family.
Can she just shut up, do you think, for a second? I mean, every single second she's on Instagram, she's sending messages.
Those meetings with the king do continue, with the Prime Minister just answering what Vivian was saying there.
Meghan Markle's brand just got absolutely destroyed, and honestly, nobody saw it coming. Not the fans, not the critics, not even the people who've been watching her every move for years. Because here's the thing, for the last 2 or 3 years, Meghan's been playing it smart. She stayed quiet, avoided the royal drama, stopped bringing up old complaints. She was rebranding herself as this chill, friendly California lifestyle figure, just living her best life. And it was working. She launched her business empire with all that Hollywood sparkle, perfectly staged photos, soft filter videos, the whole 9 yards. It was polished, it was calculated, and it was all built around one thing, being the Duchess. But then, it all exploded overnight. And the timing couldn't be worse. Because what just happened isn't some tabloid rumor or Twitter drama. This is the kind of chaos that sends shockwaves straight through what Meghan's been building. And if you think the Sussex drama has been wild before, what's unfolding right now is on a whole different level. Before we get into this mess, hit subscribe and that notification bell, because what's coming next is insane. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. So let's talk about what Meghan's been doing these past few years, because this is where the whole thing starts to make sense. After all the Oprah drama, the Netflix series, and every headline and controversy that had the world watching their every move, Meghan went quiet. Like, really quiet. And it wasn't an accident. This was strategic, calculated, and honestly pretty smart if you think about it. She spent 2, maybe 3 years staying completely out of the royal drama. No more complaints about the family, no more dragging up old issues from 5 years ago, no more controversial interviews that would dominate the news cycle for weeks. She was rebranding herself from the ground up, and honestly, it was working pretty well. The new Meghan was all about that California lifestyle vibe, friendly, relaxed, approachable, just enjoying life in Montecito with Harry and the kids. She wasn't picking fights or making waves, wasn't responding to critics, or getting pulled into royal family gossip. Instead, she was posting carefully curated content on social media, all soft lighting and dreamy aesthetics, the whole influencer package that makes everything look effortless and perfect. And people were buying into it. Even some of her harshest critics started to ease up a bit because it genuinely seemed like she'd moved past all that royal stuff for good. She seemed happy, settled, and most importantly, done talking about the royals.
Vanity Fair has turned on them, Piers. Vanity Fair with a hit piece.
Then came the business empire. And listen, when Meghan launches something, she doesn't do it halfway. She launched her brand with all the Hollywood polish and production value you'd expect from someone with her background, perfectly staged photos that looked like they belonged in a magazine spread, celebrity-approved marketing language that hit all the right buzzwords, everything wrapped up in inspirational taglines about empowerment, wellness, and living your best life. It looked expensive and professional, like her big comeback moment, the one that would finally shift the conversation away from palace controversies and toward her being a successful businesswoman in her own right. But here's what matters most. The entire brand was built around her being the Duchess, not just using the title here and there as a fun little detail, but making it the absolute foundation of everything she was doing. The royal connection wasn't subtle or hidden in the background. It was front and center, the defining feature of her whole identity and marketing strategy. The branding, the photos, the messaging, all of it somehow tied back to that Duchess title. It was the golden ticket, what made her stand out from all the other lifestyle influencers out there. And that's when people started paying really close attention. because Meghan had spent years publicly saying she wanted out of the royal system, that it was toxic for her, that it was damaging her mental health and making her life unbearable. And look, fair enough, right? If you're unhappy somewhere, you should be able to leave. But now she was launching this massive business empire that literally depended on the royal title she'd walked away from. The same institution she'd criticized, the same family she'd had problems with, the same system she said she needed to escape. And people noticed the contradiction immediately. Critics started asking the obvious question that was on everyone's mind. How can you leave the royal family, talk about how difficult it was, but still cash in on being a duchess? How does that work exactly? It didn't sit right with a lot of people, and the whispers started getting louder and more pointed. Royal commentators began weighing in, fans were debating it online, and suddenly this wasn't just background noise anymore. What Meghan probably didn't expect, what maybe caught her completely off guard, was how fast those whispers would turn into a full-blown firestorm. Because once people started seriously questioning whether she should be using the Duchess title for commercial profit, the criticism went from quiet murmurs in royal circles to front-page headlines in what felt like seconds.
According to multiple sources, it's now a matter of when, not if.
Suddenly, everyone had an opinion, and they weren't being quiet about it. Social media absolutely exploded with debates, think pieces, and hot takes. The tabloids went into complete overdrive, running story after story. And Meghan's carefully planned brand launch, the one that was supposed to be her triumphant return to the spotlight on her own terms, turned into the biggest controversy she'd faced in years. The rebrand that was meant to save her image ended up putting her right back in the center of the exact drama she'd been trying to escape. Now here's where things get really interesting, because this isn't just random people on Twitter getting upset. The concerns about Meghan using her Duchess title for profit started coming from places that actually matter. We're talking about people close to the royal family, insiders who understand how this whole system works, and royal commentators who've been covering the monarchy for decades. And they were not happy about what they were seeing. The big issue? Meghan was exploiting the Duchess title for commercial gain. That's how people were framing it, and honestly, it's hard to argue with that when you look at how her brand was set up. She wasn't just casually mentioning that she used to be part of the royal family. She was building an entire business empire on the back of a title that comes with centuries of tradition, prestige, and public trust. And to a lot of people, especially in the UK, that felt wrong. It felt like she was taking advantage of something she'd already said she didn't want to be part of anymore. Royal insiders started speaking out, some publicly, some through careful leaks to the media. They were calling it an inappropriate use of the royal connection, saying that Meghan was crossing a line that shouldn't be crossed. Because, listen, being a duchess isn't just some fancy title you get to keep forever like a degree or an award. It's tied to the institution of the monarchy. It comes with responsibilities, expectations, and a certain level of respect for what that title represents. And when you walk away from the responsibilities but keep using the title to make money, that's when people start having problems. The criticism went from quiet whispers in palace corridors to full-blown headlines practically overnight. One day it was just hushed conversations among royal watchers, and the next day major newspapers were running features about whether Meghan's business practices were ethical. Television programs dedicated entire segments to debating it. Even international media outlets picked up the story because it hit on something that people found genuinely fascinating: the clash between modern celebrity culture and ancient royal traditions.
Yeah, I think 2025 will be known as the year she lost her Netflix deal, no matter how hard Netflix tried to shove her.
And the question everyone kept coming back to was pretty straightforward. Should someone who left royal duties still be allowed to cash in on the title? because that's really what this comes down to. Meghan and Harry made the decision to step back from being working royals. They said they wanted financial independence, they wanted to live their own lives, they wanted freedom from the constraints of royal duty. Fine. But now Meghan's using the very title that comes from that same royal system to build a multi-million-dollar brand. You can see why that felt contradictory, right? Royal experts began weighing in with their opinions, and they weren't holding back. Some said that Meghan should either commit to being part of the royal family and accept the restrictions that come with it, or give up the title and build her brand on her own merits. Others pointed out that this was setting a dangerous precedent, that if Meghan could commercialize her Duchess title without consequences, what would stop other minor royals from doing the same thing? The floodgates could open, and suddenly you'd have a whole bunch of people with royal connections launching businesses and trading on their titles. Behind the scenes, sources say the senior members of the royal family were watching all of this unfold with growing frustration. They'd already dealt with years of drama surrounding Harry and Meghan's exit, the interviews, the tell-all book, the Netflix series, and just when things seemed to be settling down, now there's another controversy that puts the spotlight right back on the monarchy in a way they really didn't want. The palace was reportedly concerned about how this looked to the public and whether it damaged the credibility and dignity of royal titles in general. What made this whole situation even more complicated was the fact that Meghan was doing all of this from California, thousands of miles away from the institution she was still technically connected to through her title. She wasn't subject to the same scrutiny or oversight that working royals face every day. She could pretty much do whatever she wanted with her brand, and there wasn't much anyone in the UK could do about it. Or at least, that's what it seemed like at first. But as the criticism grew louder and the questions became more pointed, it became clear that the royal family and the people around them weren't going to just let this slide. The pressure was building and something was going to have to give. So let's get into the real problem at the heart of all this drama. Because once you understand this part, everything else makes sense. Meghan's entire empire, every single piece of her business strategy.
I'm so pleased and impressed by what the Earthshots achieved, but most of all by the finalists.
Is built on one thing: being the Duchess. It's not a side element or a bonus detail that she throws in occasionally. It's the foundation. It's the whole point. Without that Duchess title, her brand looks completely different and honestly way less interesting to most people. Think about it for a second. When you see Meghan's products, her marketing materials, her social media presence, what's the first thing that sets her apart from all the other lifestyle brands out there? It's not just that she's got good taste or knows how to create beautiful content. Plenty of people can do that. What makes her different, what makes her brand instantly recognizable and valuable is the royal connection. That's the magic ingredient. That's what gets people's attention and keeps them interested. The branding, the marketing, her entire public image, all of it is wrapped up in royal prestige. It's woven into nearly every aspect of what she's selling, whether that's actual products or just the lifestyle and image she's promoting. She's not just Meghan, the former actress from California. She's the Duchess of Sussex, the woman who married into the British royal family, the person who has this unique blend of Hollywood glamour and royal sophistication. That's the brand. That's what people are buying into. But now critics are making a point that's pretty hard to ignore. They're saying she can't have it both ways. You can't spend years talking about how restrictive and damaging the royal institution was, how you needed to escape for your mental health and happiness, and then turn around and build your entire business empire on the prestige and recognition that comes from being part of that same institution. It's like saying you hate a club, publicly quitting that club, and then continuing to wear the club jacket everywhere you go because it gets you better tables at restaurants. The contradiction is glaring, and people are calling it out left and right. Royal commentators are pointing out that Meghan wants the benefits of being royal, the title, the prestige, the instant credibility, without any of the responsibilities or restrictions that normally come with those perks. She's after financial freedom and independence, but also wants to trade on a title that represents the exact opposite of independence. She's positioning herself as a self-made businesswoman, but her business literally depends on her connection to one of the world's oldest and most prestigious institutions. And look, you can kind of understand.
It's happening. Prince Andrew will most likely be stripped of his titles by Parliament. And
both sides of this argument. On one hand, Meghan did earn that title by marrying Harry. It's legally hers. Nobody can just take it away from her without her agreement. And in her mind, she's probably thinking, why shouldn't I use every advantage I have to build something successful? That's just smart business, right? But on the other hand, there's something that feels off about using a title from an institution you've publicly criticized and walked away from. It feels opportunistic in a way that doesn't sit well with a lot of people. What makes this even more complicated is the scale of what Meghan's built. We're not talking about a small side project or a casual business venture. This is a massive empire with serious money behind it, professional teams, major marketing campaigns, the whole deal. And if the Duchess angle gets taken away, if she's forced to stop using that title in connection with her business, she'd have to rebuild everything from scratch. The branding would need to change. Marketing strategy, completely reworked. The entire identity of what she's selling, reimagined from the ground up. That's not a minor adjustment. That's starting over from square one. And in the world of business and branding, especially at this level, that kind of fundamental change can be absolutely devastating. You lose momentum, lose credibility, lose the thing that made you special in the first place. Meghan would essentially have to prove she can build something successful without leaning on the royal connection. And honestly, nobody knows if she can do that. Maybe she can. Maybe she's talented enough and has enough of a following to make it work. But it's a huge question mark, and one that would come with enormous financial and reputational risks. So now you've got this situation where Meghan's backed into a corner, whether she wants to admit it or not. Her entire business model depends on something that's increasingly under attack. The more people question whether she should be using the Duchess title commercially, the more unstable her whole empire becomes. It's like building a house on land that might not actually belong to you. Sure, the house looks great right now, but if someone comes along and says you need to move, you're looking at a disaster. And this isn't just about money or business success. This is about Meghan's identity, her public image, her place in the world. She's spent years trying to define herself on her own terms, separate from the royal family, but also not completely disconnected from them. She's trying to walk this impossible tightrope, where she gets to keep the good parts of being royal while shedding all the parts she didn't like.
Well, the rehabilitation of Meghan continues, doesn't it, Caro? So it's no accident that her name has been mentioned in regard to...
But the problem is, you can't really do that. You can't cherry pick which aspects of an identity you want to keep, based on what's convenient for you. And now that contradiction is catching up with her in a way she probably never expected. So when all this criticism started flooding in and the headlines turned brutal and the backlash became impossible to ignore, how did Meghan react? Well, according to sources close to the situation, she was completely blindsided. Like, genuinely caught off guard by how fast and how hard this hit. She'd spent years carefully rebuilding her image, staying quiet, avoiding controversy. And now suddenly she's right back in the center of a media storm that's arguably worse than anything she's dealt with before. And she was not happy about it. People who know her, insiders close to the situation, they describe her emotional state as intense. That's the word they keep using. Intense, frustrated, and deeply offended. She feels like she's being unfairly targeted. Like there's this coordinated effort to tear down what she's built right when things were finally starting to work in her favor. From her perspective, she's done nothing wrong. She's using a title that's legally hers, building a business with her own vision and hard work, and suddenly everyone's acting like she's committed some kind of crime. That's how she sees it anyway. The moment the criticism reached fever pitch, Meghan and her team went into full crisis mode. We're talking emergency meetings at all hours, conference calls late into the night. Her closest advisors and PR specialists huddled together trying to figure out how to respond to this situation before it completely spirals out of control. Sources say the atmosphere in Montecito was tense, almost suffocating. Everyone knows the stakes are massive. This isn't just some tabloid gossip that'll blow over in a few days. This is her entire business empire under attack. Her reputation on the line, her credibility being questioned by millions of people around the world. And Meghan, she made her position crystal clear from the start. According to people who were in those meetings, her stance was firm and uncompromising. We fight, we don't bow. That's not paraphrasing. That's reportedly what she actually said. She's not backing down, not apologizing, and definitely not going to let anyone tell her she can't use her own title to build her own business. In her mind, this is about principle. It's about standing up for herself and refusing to let an institution she's no longer part of
to sort of brief the king on what is going on, maybe security issues that he's privy to all the protocol.
Dictate what she can and can't do with her life. But behind that defiance, there's also a lot of anger and frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. Meghan feels sabotaged, and sources say she uses that exact word. She believes the timing of this whole controversy is no accident, that it's deliberately designed to undermine her at the worst possible moment, right when her brand was gaining momentum and starting to look like it might actually succeed on a massive scale. She's convinced there are forces working against her, people who don't want to see her win, who can't stand the idea of her being successful and happy outside the royal system. Whether that's true or just how she's interpreting the situation, it's clearly weighing on her heavily. Friends say she's been obsessively following the news coverage, reading every article, scrolling through social media reactions, watching how the narrative is developing and trying to stay one step ahead. She's not sleeping much, constantly strategizing and thinking about the next move, the next response, the next way to fight back against the criticism that just keeps coming. The meetings with her team have been intense, to put it mildly. Her advisors are split on how to handle this whole situation, and that division is creating even more tension. Some people are pushing for an aggressive, confrontational approach. They want Meghan to come out swinging, to publicly defend herself, to make it clear that she won't be pushed around or silenced. They think she should frame this as an attack on a successful woman, maybe even bring in broader themes about discrimination and unfair treatment, go on the offensive, control the narrative, make her critics look like the bad guys. But others are urging caution. They're worried that fighting back too hard could backfire spectacularly, pointing out that the optics aren't great, that a lot of people genuinely believe Meghan's in the wrong here, and that getting into a public battle could make her look defensive, entitled, or out of touch. They're suggesting a more diplomatic approach, maybe some subtle adjustments to the branding, maybe finding a way to quietly distance the business from the Duchess title without making it look like she's admitting defeat. And then there's a third group, the ones quietly whispering that maybe, just maybe she should consider stepping back from the Duchess branding altogether before this turns into something she can't recover from. These are the people looking at the long game who see which way the wind is blowing and are worried that Meghan's about to dig herself into a hole she can't climb out of. But suggesting that to Meghan right now, that's not going down well. She's in fighting mode, and the idea of backing down feels like surrender.
Meghan Markle is threatening to sue the British royal family and Prince William if her titles are removed. It's ridiculous.
So you've got this situation where Meghan's furious, her team's divided, and nobody can agree on the best path forward. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. The longer this drags on without a clear response, the more damage gets done to her brand and her reputation. But rushing into the wrong response could be even worse. It's a no-win scenario, and everyone involved knows it. The pressure is crushing, the stakes couldn't be higher, and Meghan's sitting right in the middle of it all, trying to figure out how to save everything she's worked so hard to build. Now, let's talk about Harry, because while Meghan's in full battle mode, Harry's going through something completely different. And honestly, watching what's happening to him might be the saddest part of this whole mess. According to people close to the couple, Harry warned Meghan about this months ago. He saw it coming. He told her that using the Duchess title for commercial purposes was going to attract scrutiny, that people would have opinions, that it might create problems they weren't ready to deal with. But even he didn't expect this level of intensity, this kind of global spotlight and relentless criticism. Harry knows how the royal world works. He grew up in it, lived and breathed that world for his entire life until he walked away. He understands the unwritten rules, the expectations, the way the British public thinks about titles and tradition and what's appropriate and what's not. Even though he's been living in California for years now, even though he's tried to distance himself from that world, those instincts are still there. They're carved into him. You don't just shake off 3 decades of royal training because you moved to a different country. So when all this started blowing up, when the criticism became deafening and the backlash turned into a full media circus, Harry found himself in the worst possible position. On one side, there's Meghan, his wife, the woman he loves, the mother of his children, the person he chose over everything else, including his own family and his royal duties. She's furious, she's fighting, and she needs his support more than ever. But on the other, this nagging understanding that maybe, just maybe, the critics have a point, that maybe using the Duchess title this way was always going to create problems, that maybe they should have seen this coming and found a different approach. And that internal conflict, it's tearing him apart. Sources describe Harry as looking worn down in a way they've never seen before. Not just tired, but defeated, overwhelmed, like he's carrying the weight of 2 worlds on his shoulders, and neither one is willing to give him a break.
I'm interested in that point because I wonder whether William and Kate's lot seem to be handling the PR side of the battle pretty well, because however bad it gets...
Friends who've seen him recently say there's a heaviness to him that wasn't there even during the worst days of their exit from the royal family. Back then, he was angry, but determined. Now, he just seems sad. Harry's spending a lot of time alone these days. While Meghan's in crisis meetings and strategy sessions with her team, Harry's often in another room, scrolling through news articles on his phone, reading the brutal headlines, watching the commentary and criticism pile up higher and higher. Staffers say it's like he can't look away, even though every article he reads makes things worse. He's watching this train wreck in slow motion, and he can't do anything to stop it. What's really getting to him is the sheer volume of negativity. It's not just one outlet or one commentator, it's everywhere. British tabloids, American media, social media platforms exploding with opinions and hot takes and people who are absolutely convinced Meghan's in the wrong. And Harry's reading all of it. Every tweet, comment, and think piece. He's absorbing it all, and the weight of it all is crushing him. Those around the couple say Harry looks visibly sad in a way that's hard to watch. There are moments where he'll be sitting quietly, staring at nothing, just lost in his own thoughts. Other times he's pacing around the house, restless and anxious, unable to settle or focus on anything. The stress is written all over his face. Staff members describe walking past him and seeing this look of complete exhaustion mixed with something deeper. Something that looks a lot like regret or maybe just overwhelming sadness at how everything's turned out. What makes this even harder for Harry is that he feels responsible, even though rationally he knows he shouldn't. He warned Meghan but didn't push hard enough. He saw the potential problems without insisting they find another way. And now they're in this situation and he's watching his wife go through hell while simultaneously understanding why so many people are upset. It's like being torn in two different directions, and neither option feels right. The worst part? Harry can't really talk to anyone about how he's feeling. He can't express doubts to Meghan because she needs him to be completely on her side right now, to be her rock, her unwavering support system. And he is standing by her completely, but that doesn't mean he's not struggling internally. He can't reach out to his family in the UK because that bridge feels burned beyond repair. And his friends are either Team Meghan or they're keeping their distance because they don't want to get caught in the crossfire. So Harry's essentially isolated.
So he's a very complicated, depressed, unintelligent man who is seeking a role.
With his thoughts, doubts, and overwhelming sadness about how their life has turned out. They left the royal family to find peace and happiness and freedom, moved to California to escape the pressure and the scrutiny, and somehow ended up right back in the center of a controversy that feels even more suffocating than anything they dealt with in the UK. For Harry, that realization is devastating. All the sacrifices, all the burned bridges, all the family relationships that fell apart, and for what? To end up in a different kind of nightmare? Every headline that attacks Meghan feels like a personal blow to Harry. Each criticism of her business, each question about whether she should be using the title, each social media pile-on, it all hits him directly. Because he's the reason she has that title in the first place. She became the Duchess of Sussex because she married him. This entire situation exists because of their relationship. And watching her get torn apart over something that connects back to him and his family and the institution he walked away from, it's eating him alive. Sources say there are days where Harry barely speaks. He goes through the motions, takes care of the kids, shows up for family dinners, but there's a distance to him that wasn't there before. Like part of him has checked out emotionally because it's the only way to cope with everything that's happening. Meghan's noticed it too, and friends say she's worried about him but doesn't know how to help because she's drowning in her own crisis. This is Harry at his breaking point, not angry or defiant or ready to fight back, just sad, deeply, profoundly heartbroken, overwhelmed by the noise and the pressure and the impossible position he's in, caught between love and loyalty on one side and understanding and tradition on the other. And no matter which way he turns, somebody gets hurt, including himself. Now let's talk about what's happening behind the palace walls, because this is where things get really interesting from a royal family perspective. While all this chaos is playing out in California and the media is going absolutely wild, the senior members of the royal family back in the UK are reportedly watching with a very different reaction than you might expect. According to multiple insiders who've been close to the situation, William and the other senior royals aren't exactly upset about what's happening to Meghan's brand. In fact, some sources suggest they're secretly satisfied. Yeah, you heard that right. Satisfied. Not openly celebrating or anything, because that would look terrible and the palace is way too smart to let that kind of thing leak. But privately, behind closed doors,
I believe Harry and Meghan are, quote, frustrated that there were pictures of this secret talk. It's also interesting that Harry...
There's apparently a sense that this whole controversy is actually working out pretty well for them. Because from their perspective, this isn't about attacking Meghan or trying to ruin her business. This is about protecting something they care deeply about, the integrity of the monarchy itself. Think about it from their point of view for a second. For years now, they've watched Harry and Meghan leave the royal family, criticize the institution publicly, do interviews that painted the royals in a pretty harsh light, and then turn around and continue using their royal titles for personal and commercial gain. And there wasn't much they could do about it without looking petty or vindictive. But now, the criticism is coming from outside sources, from the media, from the public, from royal commentators who understand how this whole system is supposed to work. The palace doesn't have to say a word. Everyone else is saying it for them. Insiders claim that William, in particular, has been paying very close attention to how this situation is developing. Some sources even suggest that he personally wanted Meghan's business dealings to face more scrutiny, that he's been quietly pushing for people to look more closely at how she's using the Duchess title commercially. Now, we can't confirm that for certain, and the palace would never admit to something like that publicly. But the whispers are there, and they're coming from people who would know. The message the palace seems to be sending, whether directly or indirectly, is pretty clear. You can't leave royal duties but still profit from royal titles. That's the line they're drawing. You don't get to walk away from the responsibilities, the restrictions, the public service aspects of being royal, and then keep all the prestige and commercial benefits that come with the title. That's not how this works. That's not how it's ever worked. And if you try to do it anyway, you're going to face consequences. For William and the senior royals, this whole controversy represents something bigger than just Meghan's brand. It's about precedent. It's about what message gets sent to other members of the royal family, both now and in the future. Because if Meghan can successfully build a commercial empire on the back of her Duchess title without any pushback, what stops other royals from doing the same thing? What stops every minor royal with a title from launching businesses and cashing in on their connection to the crown? The royal family has spent centuries maintaining a very careful balance between privilege and duty.
Own girlfriend. She is on record saying that the only times she flew on a plane, went on a yacht, or...
You get the title, the prestige, the recognition, but in exchange, you serve the country. You show up for engagements, you support charities, you represent the monarchy with dignity and respect. That's the deal. Always has been. And from the palace's perspective, Meghan's trying to rewrite those rules in a way that benefits her personally, but could damage the entire institution in the long run. So when the criticism of Meghan's brand started building and commentators began questioning whether she should be using the title commercially, the palace saw it as an opportunity, not an opportunity to destroy her or anything that dramatic, but an opportunity to reinforce the boundaries that have always existed. To remind everyone, including Harry and Meghan, that royal titles aren't just fancy names you get to keep forever, regardless of your relationship with the institution. They come with meaning, with history, with responsibilities that don't just disappear because you move to another country. Behind the scenes, royal aides and advisors have been carefully monitoring the situation, tracking how the public is responding and how the narrative is developing. And from what insiders say, they're pleased with what they're seeing. The public backlash against Meghan's commercial use of the title is doing exactly what the palace would want it to do, but without them having to lift a finger or look like the bad guys. It's perfect from their perspective. They get the outcome they want without any of the blame. There's also a sense among senior royals that this controversy serves as a kind of vindication for how they handled Harry and Meghan's exit in the first place. Remember, when the couple first announced they wanted to step back, There were negotiations about what they could and couldn't do. The palace was firm about certain boundaries, particularly around commercializing the royal brand. Harry and Meghan pushed back hard, wanting more freedom to operate independently. And now, years later, the exact concerns the palace had back then are playing out in real time. William and the others can look at this situation and think, we were right. We knew this would be a problem. We tried to establish clear guidelines and they pushed back. Now look what's happening. It's not about being vindictive or wanting to see Meghan fail. It's about believing that the rules exist for good reasons and watching those reasons prove themselves out in a very public way. The palace strategy, if you can call it that, seems to be one of quiet observation, mixed with subtle reinforcement of royal standards.
And it's about representing timeless values. I think it's very important. It's you've got to mix the traditional with the modern. And I think
They're not jumping into the fray, not issuing statements or getting directly involved in the controversy. But they're also not discouraging the criticism. They're letting the situation unfold naturally, letting public opinion and media commentary do the work of drawing boundaries that they've always believed should exist. For the senior royals, particularly William, the mess with Meghan's brand represents their way of drawing a line in the sand. A clear, unmistakable message that says, this is where the monarchy stands. These are our values. This is what we will and won't tolerate when it comes to royal titles and commercial enterprises. And if you cross that line, you're going to face consequences. Whether those consequences come directly from us or from public backlash, that we're not going to rush to defend you from. It's a calculated approach, one that lets the palace maintain the moral high ground while still achieving the outcome they want. They don't look petty because they're not the ones attacking Meghan. Don't look vindictive because they haven't said a negative word publicly. But behind closed doors, there's a quiet satisfaction that the system is working exactly as they hoped it would. The institution is protecting itself without them having to do the dirty work. And for Harry, watching all this unfold from California, knowing that his family back in the UK is probably quietly pleased about Meghan's struggles, that's got to be incredibly painful. It's another reminder that the bridge between him and his former life isn't just damaged. It might be completely burned. The family he left behind isn't rushing to his wife's defense. They're not offering support or suggesting compromise, and if anything, are watching her brand face massive criticism and thinking, this is exactly what we warned them about. This is exactly why the rules exist in the first place. Now let's talk about what's happening outside the palace walls and the Montecito mansion, because the public reaction to all of this has been absolutely wild. Social media didn't just respond to this controversy. It exploded. We're talking about hashtags trending worldwide, memes flooding every platform, and people on both sides of the argument going wild with their opinions. This became one of those stories that completely took over the internet for days, and honestly, it's still going strong. The main hashtags that emerged were things like Meghan versus the royals and Duchess drama, and they were everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you name it. Millions of people weighing in with their takes, hot opinions, and passionate defenses or brutal.
Very clear about the fake Duchess continuing to post Archie and Lily on Instagram.
Criticisms. And the thing is, this wasn't just royal watchers or British people following the story. This went global. People from every corner of the world suddenly had strong feelings about whether Meghan should be using her Duchess title to build a business empire. The critics came out swinging, and they were not holding back. One of the most common arguments you'd see over and over was that Meghan's trying to have her cake and eat it too. That phrase became like the rallying cry for everyone who thinks she's in the wrong. They're pointing out the hypocrisy of leaving the royal family while still profiting from the royal connection. roasting her for wanting freedom from royal duties, but keeping all the perks and prestige that come with being a duchess. The memes were savage, honestly. Some of them were actually pretty funny, even if you're on Meghan's side. One viral post showed a split screen, Meghan on one side looking glamorous with her brand materials, and on the other side a caption reading, "I want to leave the royals," next to another caption saying, "But I'll keep the title for my business. Thanks." It got millions of likes and shares. Another popular meme format showed someone trying to cancel a gym membership while still wanting to use all the facilities. The internet was having a field day with the contradiction they saw in Meghan's approach. But it wasn't all criticism. Meghan has defenders too, and they showed up in force. A huge portion of social media users jumped to her defense, calling the whole situation discrimination and unfair treatment. They're arguing that Meghan earned that title by marrying into the royal family, that it's legally hers, and that nobody has the right to tell her she can't use her own name and title for business purposes. These supporters see the backlash as just another example of Meghan being held to different standards, being attacked for doing things that other people in similar positions wouldn't face criticism for. The defenders created their own hashtags and movements online. They're framing this as a powerful woman being torn down by outdated institutions and jealous critics who can't stand to see her succeed. Some of the most passionate posts talk about how Meghan's been unfairly targeted since the day she married Harry, how nothing she does is ever good enough, how the British media and public have it out for her no matter what choices she makes. For these supporters, this isn't about titles or business ethics. It's about standing up for someone they see as being bullied and discriminated against. The online debate got incredibly heated, with both sides totally convinced they're right. Comment sections turned into war zones. People who tried to present nuanced takes, suggesting maybe both sides have valid points.
But they should be careful what they wish for. What's worse, the embarrassment of living in Prince Andrew Avenue, or the inconvenience if it's renamed?
Got attacked from all directions. You were either Team Meghan or you thought she was completely in the wrong. There wasn't much middle ground, and anyone who tried to occupy that space got accused of fence-sitting or not understanding the real issues at stake. Some of the viral content was just pure entertainment value. GIF battles between the two sides, reaction videos from commentators breaking down every angle of the controversy, TikTok creators doing dramatic readings of royal family statements, or imagined conversations between Meghan and Harry. The content was endless and kept the story trending day after day. Every time it seemed like the conversation might die down, someone would post something new that reignited the whole thing. What's fascinating is how the controversy brought out people's deeper feelings about monarchy, privilege, tradition, and modern celebrity culture. This stopped being just about Meghan pretty quickly. It became a proxy battle for bigger questions. Should ancient institutions like the monarchy adapt to modern times or hold firm to centuries-old traditions? Can someone legitimately criticize a system while still benefiting from it? Where's the line between smart business and exploitation of privilege? These are questions people have strong opinions about, and Meghan's situation became the perfect storm to debate all of them at once. The brutal commentary came from everywhere. Royal experts on television programs dedicated entire segments to analyzing whether Meghan's brand could survive this level of scrutiny. Business analysts weighed in on whether her empire was built on solid ground or if it was always destined to collapse under the weight of these contradictions. Social commentators talked about the cultural implications of an American former actress trying to monetize British royal prestige. Everyone had an angle and an opinion, all of them convinced their take was the correct one. One particularly viral tweet summed up a lot of people's feelings with brutal simplicity. You can't spend years saying the royals were toxic and then build your entire brand on being royal. Pick a lane. That got hundreds of thousands of likes and retweets. Another popular post showed a timeline of Meghan's quotes about the royal family alongside images of her brand materials prominently featuring her Duchess title, letting the contrast speak for itself. But for every critical post, there was a defense. Supporters would fire back with their own compilations, showing how Meghan's been treated differently in media coverage, that other royals do commercial things without facing the same level of backlash, and that the criticism seems disproportionate.
She is so consumed by an obsession with presenting this perfect package
to what she's actually doing. They'd post side-by-side comparisons of Meghan's business ventures versus other royal family members' activities, trying to highlight what they see as a double standard. The public opinion battle created this incredible noise that Harry and Meghan couldn't escape no matter where they looked. Turn on the TV, there's a panel discussing it. Open Twitter, 50 new trending topics about it. Check Instagram, influencers making content about it. Look at YouTube, video essays analyzing every aspect of the controversy. The couple was surrounded by opinions, most of them strongly held and loudly expressed, from millions of people around the world who felt personally invested in whether Meghan's brand should exist in its current form. What makes this even more intense for the couple is that they can see exactly how divided public opinion really is. It's not like everyone's against them or everyone supports them. It's deeply and passionately divided, with massive groups of people on both sides convinced they're right. That kind of division is almost harder to deal with than universal criticism would be, because it means there's no clear path forward that won't alienate huge numbers of people, no matter what they choose to do. So, where does all of this leave us? Because at the end of the day, this story has become about so much more than just business deals or royal titles or brand strategies. This is deeply personal now. This is about two people who thought they'd found their escape, their fresh start, their chance at building something on their own terms. And instead, they're right back in the center of the exact kind of chaos they were trying to leave behind. Meghan's not backing down, that much is crystal clear. According to everyone around them, she's dug in and ready to fight for what she believes is rightfully hers. She sees this as a battle for her autonomy, her right to build a life and a business without an institution. She's no longer part of controlling what she can and can't do. In her mind, she's earned that title through marriage. It's legally hers, and nobody should have the power to tell her how she can or can't use it. That's her position, and she's sticking to it no matter how much pressure builds from the outside. And Harry, he's standing by her side. That's not even a question. Despite everything, the overwhelming sadness and the conflict tearing him apart internally, he's not leaving her to face this alone. He made his choice years ago when he walked away from the royal family for her, and he's not going back on that now. But the cost of that loyalty is written all over him. Sources say he looks defeated, worn down, and fundamentally exhausted in a way anyone's ever seen him. This isn't the fiery, determined Harry who stood up to his family and demanded a different life.
That in itself would be a huge stumbling block. I don't see how they could overcome that. How could they both be on different sides of the country?
This is someone who's been ground down by years of constant battles, endless criticism, and the realization that maybe the peace they were looking for doesn't actually exist anywhere. The pressure they're under right now is coming from literally every direction. The royal family back in the UK, watching and quietly satisfied that their concerns are being validated. The media, both British and international, running story after story, analyzing every aspect of this controversy. Social media exploding with millions of people on both sides convinced they know exactly what Meghan should or shouldn't be allowed to do. Business experts questioning whether her empire can survive this level of scrutiny. Royal commentators debating the ethics of her entire approach. It's suffocating. There's no escape from it, no way to step back and catch their breath. And here's what makes this situation so impossibly difficult. There's no clear winning move. If Meghan backs down and stops using the Duchess title, she loses the foundation her entire brand is built on. She'd have to rebuild everything from scratch, admit defeat, look like she was wrong all along. That's not just a business setback, it's a personal humiliation that would follow her forever. But if she doubles down and keeps fighting, the criticism isn't going anywhere. If anything, it'll probably get worse. The backlash will continue, the scrutiny will intensify, and they'll be stuck in the same nightmare, just with the volume turned up even higher. What nobody really talks about in all the headlines and hot takes is the human cost of everything happening. Harry's quiet sadness, the way he's retreating into himself more and more as the pressure builds. The distance growing between him and Meghan, even though they're supposedly in this together. The fact that he warned her this would happen, saw it coming from miles away, and now he's watching it play out as he feared while feeling powerless to do anything about it. That's the part of the story that gets lost in all the debate about titles and business ethics and royal protocol. Harry's trapped in a way that's almost impossible to imagine unless you've been there. He loves Meghan, he's committed to her, he chose her over his entire former life. But he also understands, maybe better than she does, why so many people are upset about this. He grew up royal. He knows what those titles mean, their representation, and why people care so deeply about how they're used. He can see both sides of this argument clearly, and that understanding doesn't make things easier. It makes them so much harder. Because no matter what happens,
Harry recently made a trip to the UK where he and his father had a 90-minute sit-down, and reports about how
part of him knows that somebody's right and somebody's wrong, and he's caught in the middle trying to be loyal while also being honest with himself about the reality of their situation. The world that won't let them go is bigger than just the royal family or the British media. It's the entire ecosystem of public opinion, social media, traditional institutions, and modern celebrity culture all colliding in one impossible storm. They moved to California thinking distance would solve their problems, stepped back from royal duties hoping for freedom, and built a business expecting independence. And somehow none of it worked, and they're more scrutinized now than ever, more criticized, more trapped by the very things they thought they were escaping. This battle that's playing out right now isn't ending anytime soon. Meghan's determined to keep fighting. The critics are convinced they're right and won't back off. The palace is invested in protecting royal standards and won't step in to help. And the public is too divided to reach any kind of consensus that might ease the pressure. So Harry and Meghan are stuck, caught in a situation that has no good solutions and no clear path forward. And that's what makes everything so tragic in a way. Because strip away all the business talk and the royal protocol debates and the social media wars, and what you're left with is two people who just wanted to be happy, thought they could build a life on their own terms, and believed that leaving one world would let them create a better one. Instead, they're discovering that some things follow you no matter how far you run. Some battles don't end just because you change locations. Some pressures don't disappear just because you want them to. The battle's just getting started, and honestly, it's already tearing them apart from the inside. You can see it in Harry's face, his quiet sadness, the way he's withdrawing from everything around him. You can sense it in Meghan's defiance and her determination to fight, even when the odds look impossible. This isn't a couple triumphantly building their dream life anymore. This is two people trying to survive a storm that keeps getting worse, holding on to each other because that's all they have left, and hoping that somehow, some way, they'll find a way through this that doesn't destroy everything they've worked for and everything they've sacrificed to get here. That's where things stand right now. Meghan's fighting, Harry's struggling, and nobody knows how this ends. If you want to stay updated on what happens next, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about all of this. Thanks for watching.